Hi, I'm Rachel. I'm a junior at Loyola University, and I've been collaging for about 5 to 6 years. So when I was like 2 or 3, my mom used to give us like old cards and old magazines, and she'd have us like cut them up, and then she'd have us like choose our pieces and put them on like inside a storybook. And then I couldn't write, so I'd tell her what the story was, and she'd write it down based on what the cutout pictures are. So that's probably my earliest memory of collaging. I like stopped for a while after my mom stopped making me. So then when I was older, around like 14, 15, I really started to get into scrapbooking. And so I wanted to make a cool design for my front cover of my scrapbook, but I'm not artistically inclined. So I was like, I can't paint on it, I can't draw it, it'll look bad. So I was like, what about if I cut some stuff up, slap it on there? Started to collage the cover, and I really got into it after I finished, and then I just kept making them.
She's still very creative today. She collages, she scrapbooks, she just does a lot of creative things. And her major is creative. She's in communications. And last Christmas, she surprised me with a beautiful scrapbook of pictures from my Italy trip. And it was just put together so creatively. I loved it.
So some of my favorite materials to use when I'm collaging are old newspapers that I just have like in my recycling bin, or I'll have like old magazines that my mom saved over the years. We have a subscription to National Geographic, and so she doesn't throw them out. So like under her bed, she just has like huge stacks of National Geographic. So I started asking like, can I use some of your National Geographics that you're hoarding? And she was like, okay. So then I started using hers, and then I started going to thrift stores and finding like super old National Geographics. Like this one's from 1978, so it's a relic. So just the colors are really vibrant, and it's really different from National Geographics today. Like even the ads and stuff, like they're just like, you wouldn't see an ad like this today. And so that it really makes, like, it draws a reaction out of me, and it makes me want to like save it and like put it on something special. So I usually create collages on just stuff in my recycling bin. So like old cereal boxes, just pieces of cardboard, and then I'll cut them in like the size that I want, and then I'll just make the collage on them. So when I start collaging, I'll usually start in a magazine. I'll find like my first image, and then once I find that image, I'll look for other things like it, or I'll look for just text or pictures that like I think like are like funny or like really interesting, or like they just make me they just remind me of something else. So I'll once I find stuff, I'll begin cutting it out, and then I'll create like a pile of images that I'll use. And sometimes I have like older piles that like I made before, like extras from previous collages, and I'll like combine them all together, and then I'll pick out my images pretty much one by one, usually I'll put the bigger images first as the background, and then I'll start doing the smaller ones on top until the collage is finished. Usually when I collage, I'll find myself making a theme and like not really knowing it. So like I'll either do a color theme or a theme around like a certain image, and then afterwards when I'm looking at it, I'll be like, wow, I really like brought in a certain element to like every part of it. One of my favorite parts about collaging is that you can have one image and it can mean something else on its own, but then as soon as you juxtapose it to something else, it can change completely in its meaning. And so you can just create a lot of different stories within several images. So I'm a communications major, so a lot of the projects I do at school are like telling stories, either through like video or like a written story. And I think collaging is just another way of storytelling, but just through a different medium. So I would say that my major and collaging are pretty like connected to one another. Part of advertising is like conveying information, and in a way that's telling a story. So I'll use these ads as a part of my like bigger story in my collage in order to tell like a different story. I'm really into art, but I'm not an artist, so I'm just not artistically inclined when it comes to like painting or drawing. And even though like I consider myself a creative person, sometimes it's hard for me to get it out in a way that like looks pretty just because I don't have that many skills. So I find that with collaging, you don't have to be like artistically inclined, and that you can just use scissors and use glue, and like anyone can make a collage because it's like an easy way to make art.